Hi guys, Jane here. Welcome to another video today. Today we're going to be talking about anorexia nervosa. What is anorexia nervosa? Let's find out. Disclaimer, I am not a mental health professional, therefore please do not use this video as a diagnostic tool. Rather, it is just an educational video that is used to inform the general public about what anorexia nervosa is. Now, because I'm not a mental health professional, please feel free to leave any comments, experiences, additional information, or even corrections down below so that we can make this a more educational platform. Now, given the large amount of information, I can't possibly cover everything in one video. Therefore, if you guys want to learn more about anorexia nervosa, please feel free to look at the links down below and check them out. Now, a lot of the resources that I have also have their references of their own. So if you guys want to go check those out while you're at it, feel free. Now, what is anorexia nervosa? It is basically an eating disorder that is characterized by distorted body image, obsession over body weight and image, and significant weight loss. Now, there are two subtypes of anorexia nervosa. One is the restricting subtype, and the other one is binge eating / purging subtype. Many people are wondering what's the difference between anorexia and bulimia. Well, anorexia is basically an eating disorder that is comprised of self-starvation that involves significant weight loss, over 50% or more of ideal body weight. However, bulimia is a series of binging and purging, however, they are at a normal weight or above. Also, people with anorexia do not eat enough to sustain bodily functions. However, bulimic people eat way more at a given setting. Basically, they binge or they eat way too much in one sitting. So it's not like they're getting nutritional deficiencies. However, they feel like they're out of control when they're eating. But wait, Jane, you just said that there is a binge eating / purging subtype in anorexia. Isn't that just the same thing as bulimia? Well, yes, in nature they are the same thing. However, if an anorexic is binging and purging, the diagnosis of anorexia nervosa supersedes bulimia nervosa. How does one even get diagnosed? Well, according to the DSM-5 criteria, 3 things need to happen. Number 1, there needs to be a persistent restriction of energy intake, which leads to a significant weight loss. Now, you guys might be wondering, like, whoa, what does that even mean? Well, I'll give you some examples. 1, they are dieting despite the fact that they're really, really thin. So they follow a very severely restricted diet, and they ban certain foods, especially carbohydrates or even fats. Also, they have an obsession with calories, fat grams, and nutrition. You're going to see them obsessively reading food labels, measuring weight portions, or even keeping a food diary so that they can be mindful, extremely mindful of what they're eating, but to an unhealthy level. Also, they have strange and secretive food rituals. So many people with anorexia do not like eating in public because they feel very, very uncomfortable. Also, they have very strange eating rituals. One example might be they might chew their food and drink all the juice in it and then spit out the rest. So they're basically just taking in the caloric juices, but they're spitting out the solid part of the food, if you will, so that they won't gain any weight. Number 2, there must be an intense fear of weight gain or persistent behavior that interferes with weight gain. An example of this might be preoccupation of food. So they're always thinking of food. They're either cooking for others or collecting recipes, and they're just obsessed with food, yet they don't eat it themselves. Another example is that they might pretend that they have ate, or they're lying about eating. For example, they might say, oh, I had a very huge lunch, or oh, my stomach isn't feeling that well. They might give those excuses when someone offers them to eat something. They might be hiding or playing with or even throwing away their food because they just don't want to eat. Number 3, they have a disturbance in the way one's body weight or shape is experienced, or they have a persistent lack of recognition of the seriousness of their current low body weight. Now, what do I mean by this? Here are some examples. They deny that they are having a significant weight loss and that their body weight is way below normal. And they do it by concealing their weight loss by either wearing baggy clothes or drinking a lot of water before eating so that they might seem bloated. Now, even though they're really thin, fat distribution is unequal for everybody. Some people, there's more fat on their legs. Some people, there's more fat on their arms. Whatever it is, it differs for each person. However, there are those fatty areas around everybody's body. And there's a very unhealthy fixation of that fat region in themselves. Even though it's very, very skinny, they tend to criticize the nitty-gritty details about their body and just heavily criticizing their fat regions of their body, if you will. Also, they might feel really fat despite being underweight. Even though one might bring objective evidence to the anorexic saying, you are very skinny or you are significantly underweight, they will still not believe you because they just don't feel thin enough. Now, what are some risk factors of anorexia nervosa? Main biggies are body dissatisfaction, low self-esteem, troubled family relationships, traumatic experiences, whether it is physical, sexual, or emotional abuse, or family history of anorexia. There's definitely a genetic and environmental influence in the risk factors that are involved with anorexia nervosa. What are some psychotherapy treatments for anorexia nervosa? Well, number one is nutrition therapy. So basically, doctors, nurses, and counselors will help them restore them back to their original health and to their baseline. Now, some people with anorexia need to be hospitalized because their health is so deteriorated that there needs to be close monitoring of their food intake and their cardiac condition. So many will be either hospitalized or participate in residential treatment programs. Number two are support groups. So basically, this is where a lot of people who are anorexic come together and they share their own experiences. Now, this group is mainly meant for validation and just support in general, because the people that are in that group know exactly what the anorexic is going through, and that can provide comfort, that can provide validation, and that can provide extra help in their recovery. What are some medications that people with anorexia nervosa can take? Well, number one are antidepressants. So there are different classes of antidepressants, and there's SSRIs, SNRIs, and all those other antidepressants. But the most common antidepressants that are usually prescribed are like your classic Prozac, Zoloft, Celexa, It's usually the SSRI family. Now, even though it's an eating problem, SSRIs can really help the anorexic to lessen their depression and anxiety that comes along with anorexia. The second medication is an antipsychotic called olanzapine, and in brand name it's Zyprexa. However, this really helps anorexic patients kind of get rid of their obsessive thinking, especially with food. It can also help an anorexic experience weight gain so that they can restore their weight back to normal and healthy levels. Now, the third kind of medications that they can take are mainly biological medications. Now, what do I mean by that? It's basically the calcium supplements for bone growth, electrolyte supplements, vitamin supplements, and estrogen replacements. So basically, there's hormone therapy involved, there's vitamin therapy involved. Basically, they're taking medication that can physically restore their body, because anorexia can really damage someone physically. So appropriate to their needs, the doctor will definitely prescribe those medications if necessary. Now, what are some statistics of anorexia nervosa? I'm just going to read it off here. So let's get started. Number 1, 0.9% of American women suffer from anorexia in their lifetime. Wow. Number 2, 1 in 5 anorexia deaths is by suicide. This was very surprising to me because I always thought that they died because of health complications. However, I never knew that suicide was one of the main reasons why. And that's why prompt treatment is necessary, so that they don't reach to a point where they feel like ending their own lives. Number 3, 50 to 80% of the risk for anorexia and bulimia is genetic. So there's definitely a genetic component to developing anorexia. Number 4, 33 to 50% of anorexia patients have comorbid mood disorders, such as depression. And mood disorders are more common in the binge/purge subtype than in the restrictive subtype. Wow, there's definitely comorbidity involved in this disorder. Speaking of comorbidity, about half of anorexia patients have comorbid anxiety disorders, including obsessive-compulsive disorders and social phobia. Now, what are my final thoughts? Well, I believe that people with anorexia should get prompt treatment. For the people who have been watching throughout the whole video, if you find these symptoms within yourself and you're like, ooh, this sounds a lot like me and I feel like I'm going through this and I don't know if it's anorexia or not, but I'm definitely having eating problems, please, I highly advise you to seek out a mental health professional, because for anorexia nervosa, symptoms worsen as they progress. Now, the symptoms that I'm going to be talking about are physical symptoms. Now, at first, the anorexic might start off with brittle nails and hair, yellow skin, irregular periods, or even no periods at all. They might also feel very dizzy and they might faint, and they have very little cold tolerance. And those might not seem as that serious, but the complications that can come afterwards are very devastating and they are very dangerous. For example, they might suffer from anemia, osteoporosis, hepatitis, and they can experience more serious, dire complications, such as electrolyte imbalances, which can lead to death, also cardiac failure, sudden death, respiratory failure, and, as I said before, suicide. There are many sudden, dire, and serious complications that can come with anorexia if not treated promptly. Let's help one another to get rid of the stigma of anorexia and not be ashamed of this, because people's lives are involved, and that goes for any mental illness, for sure, definitely. However, if you or anyone else suffer from this, I highly recommend to get professional treatment immediately so that you can prevent these complications from happening. Thank you so much for watching my video. I make videos every Monday, so stay tuned. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, do all that jazz, and I will see you guys next week. Bye, guys.